621.
Mr. LeBlanc, you're classified as a first felony offender. Your sentence, November 18th, 2013, in Jefferson Parish, attempted aggravated incest. You received a 10-year sentence. Then in, I think this must be St. Tammany Parish, November 21st, 2013, 300 counts pornography involving juveniles. You received a 5-year sentence. Parole eligibility was October 4th, 2018, and you don't earn good time, and your full-term date is July 13, 2023. Mr. LeBlanc, is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, Mr. LeBlanc, we've read the information that was provided to us by the DOC. I have a question. So the victim in this case, in the incest case, was your biological daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
How old was your daughter at the time of the incident?
5 years old.
And do you remember the incident involving your daughter that sent you to prison?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you do?
I had invited her into the shower with me, and it was a grave mistake. I fully regret it today to put her through that situation. And it's been eating at me ever since. And I know the pain and suffering she's been feeling, and I've been feeling it just as bad. And it's something that I truly regret. And no father should put their kid through that. And
She was
I know,
five.
ma'am.
She was 5 years old, you say?
Yes, ma'am.
And then 22 months after that incident, there was this 300 counts of the child pornography in the home. Is that right?
It was actually on my laptop work computer. Yes, ma'am.
So tell us, how would you come to put your daughter through that?
I was in a bad place. I was not thinking. I was only thinking for myself, my own self gratification, being selfish. And I was not thinking about all the ramifications it would put my family through, the hurt and pain my daughter would feel.
Were you under the
that-
influence of anything?
Ma'am,
Were you under the influence of anything? Drugs, alcohol?
only pain medication from injury I was treating myself. That was it.
What was that?
I don't recall, some type of I think it was non-narc. I don't know. It's like Percocet or something. I don't really remember. It just I had a shoulder injury at the time, a separated shoulder.
And were you taking that medication as prescribed?
Yes, ma'am, as prescribed.
Can you tell us about your conduct record? What's that look like there?
In 9 years, I only had one write-up, which I admitted to. I made a mistake. I admitted to
What
it.
was that for?
Say again.
What was the write-up for?
A general prohibited behavior.
What did you do?
I had permission to look up paint guns on a Votech computer, and I did. And they also had a sidebar pop-up menu, and I saw someone's name, an inmate, and I went to and clicked on it. It was a news site about something that person did, and my mistake was clicking on it, and I admitted to it, and I accepted the charge. And I set out to keep my behavior good.
What other programs have you been able to take advantage of? You've been in jail 9 years?
Yes, ma'am. From day one, I wanted to make myself a better person. From day one at DCI, I enrolled in a faith-based program. I did 2 years in that, and I became a mentor, teaching other ones and new members in the faith-based dorm classes. I also enrolled in Votech in the auto body trade, and I needed to get more job skills so I could be a more productive citizen when I do return to society. I became a tutor in the Votech, teaching younger guys the trade. And after that, I enrolled in college because I only had a few hours of college. I wanted to finish my college. And I believe at my last hearing, you advised me to graduate and finish my education and stay away from write-ups, and I did that. Not only did I get associate's degree in 2019, I kept going and I graduated bachelor's degree in December 21.
So, Mr. Lyon, I need you to sit up a little bit. I can't only see, there you.
I'm sorry,
yeah, I
I'm
can-
sorry. I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing, so I gotta lean into the speaker.
But
I'm
we're
just
hearing.
leaning.
They can hear you fine.
Okay,
We can hear you fine. You don't have to lean in.
okay,
It's all good.
yes, ma'am.
When was your last hearing? 2 years ago?
February 2019.
Almost 3 years. Well, 3 years. All right, Mrs. Jackson has some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. LeBlanc, I saw in your record that you had completed sex offender treatment,
Yes, ma'am.
all 4 phases, is that correct?
That is correct.
What was the biggest takeaway you got from sex offender treatment?
The biggest takeaway, all the definitions pretty much, just the blame, the denial, the justification, the self-gratification. I just realized how many things are out there, and I realized my mistakes by taking that class, and I never, ever want to put my family through that again. The embarrassment we went through, the embarrassment I went through, my daughter, I can't go through that again. I can't put myself in that situation again.
I understand it teaches you safeguards and things to put around sex, so, but does it teach you to understand what drew you this kind of behavior? Because let's face it, most people wouldn't do what you did.
Correct.
So what did you learn about yourself that would in some way help us understand why you would commit this kind of crime, particularly against a child and particularly against your own biological child? What is it about you that you learned that would account for this kind of behavior?
I learned to put others before myself, not to be selfish, to always think of others.
This is wrong. You're not answering my question. Why did you sexually molest your daughter? What did you learn? You know, some people say, well, I was molested as a child. Or, I mean, there's got to be a reason. People just don't have the children do what you did. There has to be something. And unless you identify that something and deal with that something, it's still there. And you're just reciting to me, things that were said in the class. You're not showing me that you put any real thought into why did I do this to my little girl? And that's what I'm trying to hear from you.
The main definition that stood out that they taught and I learned from the class was self-gratification, where you only think of yourself and not your victim.
Okay,
And
but
another,
okay, let me stop you right there. You know, you can gratify yourself sexually with adults. You know, a lot of other ways. But there's something that caused you to, and then you had child pornography. That's another thing involving children. So why is the source of your sexual gratification the exploitation of children?
I understand what you're asking, and I was in a dark place at the time. I had no God in my life, no religion in my life. I had no real direction in life. I was only thinking of myself.
Do you
And-
think, talk about the pornography.
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
think pornography is addictive?
At that time, it was. Yes, ma'am, it was. And
So,
I had to change my ways.
so what have you done to address your addiction to pornography? Because obviously, if you had that many images of child pornography on your work, you had to have an addiction to pornography. So what have you done to address that?
First of all, taking those classes really opened my eyes up to how many problems are actually out there. Coming to jail is a big awakening. And also the embarrassment on myself and my family is a big awakening. To put everybody through that, and the victim, it's despicable, and I can't.
Pornography is something that people usually do in secret. So if you get out and start viewing child pornography again, won't necessarily embarrass you because they won't know.
Just
But
knowing,
eventually- Go ahead.
knowing that I did that and that I embarrassed my family, that's something I don't ever want to put anybody else through. I mean, there's one word I learned in jail, and that's integrity. And that's doing the right thing, no matter if anybody's watching or not. And that's what I strive to do. The military taught me discipline. I didn't use discipline when I made those choices back then. But I had grown in 9 years through the programming here. It had made me into a different person, a better person. I have faith in God now. I do believe in myself. My family still backs me and believes in myself. Even my ex-wife wrote a letter to the judge, not wanting me to get prison time. She only wanted me to get probation. She still believes in me, and I know she still does. And if I was here in front of my daughter today, I would apologize to her to everything that she went through, living without her father. Every young girl needs a father to grow up with, and I put her through that. And I just would like to be a father again. One day, maybe we can reunify through supervised visits or something. I just like to be a family again.
All right, thank you, Mr. Long, for not being silent. Thank you.
We'd like to hear from Warden Bickham.
Hey, good morning, board. Good to see y'all today. As far as Brian here, he's been with DCI for a while, and as y'all see, he's done some good programming. He had that one significant write-up where he was at the VOTEC and basically it looked up another offender's inmates' issues, and there was some discussions on whether he had spread that information around. And then talking with him and stuff, he's done some good things here. But I tell you, I'm concerned talking with him that he's actually gotten down to the root of his issue on what his problems have been. Just talking with him and stuff is, he, like Miss Jackson said, he seems to me always says the things that he's learned in class, but not really getting down to the root of what his problem is. But as far as in here, he's done some good classes. That's my only concern. But thank you.
And so, Mr. LeBlanc, are you followed by mental health at all?
Say that again?
Are you followed by mental health at DCI?
Filing?
Followed by mental health. Are you-
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No.
Once I completed the offender classes, I was through with mental health.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir. We'd like to hear from your mother, Mrs. Marsh. Your microphone's still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning. Uh, we have supported Brian throughout this, and we have seen a big change in Brian. Brian went into prison as a very immature man. I think his decision was a very immature decision, but through all the programs you have offered him and he has taken advantage of, he has changed. For one thing, he has found God. And I think God is going to help Brian. His faith is going to help him. His family is going to help him. And he is going to become a better citizen, a better human being through all of that. Brian was not molested as a child. I cannot tell you what made him make that decision, but it was I believe it was truly a spur of the moment, immature decision. I don't think it's in him to do that ever again. I don't know why he did it. And obviously we're sorry that he did it, but I truly believe he has changed, and I wish that you would give him the chance. I have a statement from his son who was unable to join us because of work. Do you mind if I read that?
Go ahead.
For the past 9 years, I have not physically had my dad by my side in those times when I really needed that father figure present. Despite being locked up, my dad has always been supportive of me and has helped me in many other ways. There wasn't a birthday, holiday, or special occasion that passed by where I didn't hear him say, "I miss you, son. I love you, son." He has helped me believe it especially during my rough times in college. Seeing my dad take those same steps and obtain a bachelor's degree made me very happy because it shows me he has kept his head up and stayed in good spirits through his time served. My dad has always stayed positive and looked to better himself, to continue to change within by going to school, working, and even joining a church choir. I am ready for my dad to be home and to continue to support me. His son is 25, and he has gone with me every visit that we have gone to see Brian. He's very supportive. We are in contact with his sister, the victim. I don't think she's ready to forgive her father, but she is understanding, and she also wants him to have a future outside of prison. I don't know if y'all contacted her or what she had to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. We appreciate your input. We'll hear from the DA's office now.
Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties there. Randy Meyer, Assistant DA in Jefferson Parish. And we are opposed to Mr. LeBlanc's request for parole. As the warden said, and I agree with that, and this is in response to the questions from Ms. Jackson. It's clear that he hasn't identified the problem that has caused him to experience or to do the things that he did to his 5-year-old daughter, and also the pornography, the juvenile child pornography that he had on his computers. If he can't identify and understand what caused him to commit that just horrendous crime, he's not ready to be released. And we're strongly opposed to his release at this time for that reason. I did speak with his ex-wife. She is not opposed to his release. However, she's apparently the two daughters are not ready to have any contact with him and to have any dealings with him. She did ask that I relate to the board that should he be released, that he respects their wishes, and any future contact with them would be on their terms, not his. Thank you.
Thank you. You can prepare to vote.
Yes.
All right. Ms. LeBlanc, is there a statement you'd like to make to us first before we vote?
First of all, yes, ma'am. First of all, I would like to thank the board for this rehearing opportunity. I took the advice that you had given me at my last hearing about finish my education and stay away from write-ups. I completed both of those, and I'm very proud of my education. And I'd like to once again apologize to my daughter for my selfish actions that day. No child should go through that. And I just wish I could have changed that. I can't change the past. I could steer the future though. And I just hope for a second chance opportunity to re-enter society, to be a productive citizen and get back to work and obey the laws. And I appreciate your opportunity today. Thank you.
Transition plan would be to the Veterans Outreach Ministry, which includes housing.
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
What's your, if you were successful, where would you go? I have Veterans Housing Outreach Ministries in Marrero.
Yes, ma'am. It's a lady that we know. She provides housing for veterans returning back to society. And she supports us and makes sure we get employment and we stay out of trouble. And it's in Marrero. Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I'll be voting first. Your case was assigned to me, and you know, I want to say thank you for your service.
Thank
in the
you.
United States. I do appreciate that you took my advice and completed your associates and your bachelor's degree. I have a little bit of concern about you, but I see you have a full-term date, which is less than a year away now. And I'd like to add some special conditions. I don't know what you can do more there at DCI to figure out the root of your problem. I just don't know. I do believe that's an important issue that needs to be addressed. You do have a low static 99 risk score, which that's an instrument used to determine the likelihood of a sex offender reoffending. Yours is scored a 0. You have a low regular risk assessment score. You've only had one write-up, and that's prior to the last hearing. So my vote would be to grant your parole with the added special condition that you do have a mental health evaluation. And if there's any treatment recommended, you do that, and that you enroll in counseling on a regular basis. You got to address the core issue. I'm just one vote, so that's my vote.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
You know, I've listened to you talk, and I do agree with Mr. Knox. I think you've done all you can do in prison. Plus, I think you need this year of supervision. You know, I'd rather you be out there with a parole officer come and see you than you getting out next year and no one coming. So my vote is also to grant, and that you follow all the conditions of the sex offender contract, that you be placed on electronic monitoring with no contact with the victim unless initiated through the parole officer by the victim. And I also think you need a 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. church.
Yes, sir.
Jackie?
Mr. LeBlanc, as you can tell from my questioning, I do have concerns about you. I really do. I think there's a shell that hasn't been broken through yet. I think you're still kind of hiding behind, you know, whatever it is that gives you a sense of comfort. But you do get out in a few months. I kind of agree with Mr. Freeman. I'd rather you out with some form of supervision than just out. I just think there's some more work to do. You know, when you get out, the internet has changed a whole lot. There's a whole lot more stuff in access than we did even 9 years ago. And so I would add, and I'm sure it's part of the sex offender contract, but that you give passwords and access to any devices that allow you to access the internet. I don't know if there's novelty anonymous meeting, but I think you need some sort of addiction meeting, because whether it's drugs or alcohol or whatever, addiction is addiction. And you have to have some safeguards in place that you know how to avoid the things that are going to get you back to where you are. So I don't know whether it's Gamblers Anonymous or AA, but I need you to go to some sort of addiction recovery meeting if you do have an addiction. But my vote today would be to grant your early release, so that you will have a period of parole supervision before your full term.
Thank
All right,
you.
Ms. Blank, I understand all that. You've got some work to do after release.
Yes, ma'am.
Hard work. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
How is this not criminal? How is this possible? How is this possible? Someone explain to me how this can happen. If you are not enraged by this, something is off. But forget us. Forget his enabling mother. Forget his enabling ex-wife. Let's talk about the judge that sentenced him. Make it make sense. It's his biological daughter. They gave him 10 years for the biological daughter, and after he took that plea deal and was sentenced, they found the CP on his computer and they sentenced him a second time. They sentenced him a second time. And they had it run concurrent. So he only is facing 10 years. A judge could have looked at those 300 images and sentenced him on every single one of them. It could have been picked up federally, and he'd be spending the rest of his life locked up. Now, thank you, Randy Meyer, for showing up, because he shows up to his parish, and it makes a big difference. It makes all the difference. It's about time. And I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and say he had nothing to do with this sentencing. But there is some DA, assistant DA, that thought that this would be an appropriate sentence, and explain to me how. They make up these excuses. They make up these lies, where the assistant DAs make up these lies where they say, we don't want to go to trial. We don't want to go to court because we care about the victim. We're a champion of the victim. Well, tell me, assistant DA, do you need to put a victim on the stand for 300 images of CP? Are you going to track them down and put them on the stand? Is that your defense? Because you don't need to put that on the stand. You have the evidence. You didn't need to put his little daughter on the stand to sentence him away for life. You had the evidence. You had 300 images, and that's the plea down to 300 images. There could have been thousands. Each one is a count to be served to years. I don't know how many it is in Louisiana, but that doesn't make a difference. It could have been 1 year each. You get him for 300 years. Take him to trial. What do you need to prove? If he had had 300 grams of an illegal substance, you know they would have taken him to trial. You know it. If he would have had 300 pounds of Schedule 2, you know that they'd be taking him to trial, and they'd be pressing it all over the news. Look who we caught. Look how good we are at what we do. We have taken 300 pounds of Schedule 2 off of the streets, of Schedule 1. The devil's lettuce. Look at us. Look how we're protecting our society. But when it's children, when it's a child, let's sweep it under the rug. Let's kick the ball down the road for a measly 9 years. A judge could have done anything. You think he and his public defender were holding the cards? You think they had the right to negotiate a good deal? No, it's on the computer. You don't need to put his daughter on the stand. A judge could have even said, we'll give you 10 years and then 10 years supervision, something, but nothing. And then to add insult to injury, he has a low risk score. He has a 0 on his risk score, a 0. Do you think we're all nuts? You think we're all idiots? I don't care how many PhDs you have who you wrote that algorithmic risk score. We're not stupid. How much were you paid to write that algorithm? A 0? You look at it and say, wow, great job. I put together this algorithm and he's a 0. It's incest with his own daughter. 300 images of CP, which is what he was pled to. He's the definition of a full-blown pedo. He can't even describe what he did was wrong. He can't even pretend it and fake it and say the right words after 9 years sitting in prison. I invited her into the shower. I was impulsive. Remind you, it's his 5-year-old daughter. And he has another daughter that they didn't talk about. 2 daughters that both don't want to talk to him. His wife and his mother, they all deserve each other. They should be in prison sitting next to him, rotting away. He says, it's been the pain for me. He said, the pain for me is just as bad. I never want to put my family through the embarrassment. These are his choices of words. My ex-wife even wrote a letter to the judge asking for probation. His mother says his decision was immature, but he found God. This is your biological granddaughters, you pathetic excuse, but grandmother. Everyone failed those children. Everyone failed those little girls. And this is why I do this. This is why I do this. This is why we do this. This is why we support this channel, because we are not going to have our head in the sand. We are not going to be the walking zombies as our system throws away the innocence of our youth. A 5-year-old. And he gets a little slap on the wrist. How many people watching this have served more time for stealing a car, for writing forged checks? This needs to be called out. This needs to be seen by the public. This is not just the legislator, because the laws were in place for a DA and a judge to throw the book at him. They were holding a royal flush, and all they had to do is one job, is to protect our children, is to protect those little girls, and they gave him nothing. He served less than 10 years, and he's considered a low risk. He's a tier 3, the minimum tier of an offender. He's under 55 years old. You know how many years that is to offend? It's not okay. Low risk score. A 0 on his risk score. If you needed proof that the system is broken, it's right here. I'm done.